Welcome to the Clean Air Zone on RPTV. This is your host, CK. Today we're here with Tara Valley, the Senior Consultant and Mold Specialist for Environmental Services Group, Inc. Welcome, Tara.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what types of services your company provides?
Well, basically our company does indoor environmental assessments. So
Okay.
anything from indoor air quality, mold, asbestos, chemical and gas testing we can do.
I know there's like a standard to have like carbon monoxide testers. So what is carbon monoxide really, and what are the negative health effects of breathing in carbon monoxide?
Well, actually carbon monoxide is odorless, it's colorless, so it's not something you could smell or taste either. And basically the danger with carbon monoxide is toxic in high quantities to humans. So when you leave a car running in a garage and it can infiltrate a house, then people can be poisoned inside a home. So that's why the government and fire safety want you to have a carbon monoxide testers.
Right, and that's
in the
standard,
house.
right?
It's pretty standard, yeah.
Right.
So it's not something that's like most people call us to test, but it's because people are very aware of that.
So like what are some of the hidden areas for like toxins in the home?
Basically, for hidden areas, like a lot of things that we test for, people just have symptoms. So we like to go in and look for things like hidden mold growth, water damage, things that could be behind the walls, behind showers,
Right.
in the attics. Things that you're not
Yeah.
necessarily going to be right in front of your face. So we have all kinds of different equipment, thermal imaging cameras, things like that to look for hidden, like anywhere there could be like an infestation of mold or water damage. There's other things like asbestos, could be inside wall cavities and attics.
So tell me more about asbestos. Like where's that? I remember that's like all the place and a lot
Yeah.
of old buildings have it. So where's it come from?
Yeah, it comes from, it's actually naturally occurring in soils, and it's in like rocks. And
You
actually,
brought some
I brought
here?
some.
Oh
This is,
my goodness.
This is actually, well, it's sealed. But
Okay.
this is pipe insulation. This is kind of what most people would be able to identify as asbestos containing, because it's got that corrugated, you can see it here, it looks like a cardboard
Oh,
box almost,
yeah.
and this would be wrapped around boiler pipes. Most people would know this would be the first thing they would think of when they think of asbestos.
Right.
But asbestos is in all kinds of building materials, including floor tiles, ceiling tiles, drywall compound, plaster with texture coats, and it can also be in buildings up to, like a very common age for asbestos to be in a building is still in 1985.
Wow.
And we still do use asbestos today. It's still installed today. So,
I remember there was like a big scare when the World Trade Center came down, all this asbestos that was installed in the building
yeah.
was just airborne.
I know. And just dust in general
Yeah.
on top of the asbestos. Because they're just like very tiny fibers, and when they get into your lungs, they're very hard to extract them back out of your lungs. So once they get in, they get stuck. Your body will produce like a tissue around it to try to heal it and eject it, and then ends up actually suffocating you.
Oh dear.
Yes, it's very
So
dangerous.
it works against you.
Yes.
What are some causes of mold, and like what are some health issues that can result from mold in your home?
Well, most people who call us to do mold testing already are suffering some kind of allergy. It could be anywhere in the eyes, the nose, the throat. So they're already suffering somewhat, and or they know they've had some kind of water loss, like their toilet leaked, or they had a flood in the basement, or they
Right.
found a crack in their foundation wall, or they know their windows have been needed replacement for a while. So those are the kind of things that we focus on, where you could have exposure to mold. And most people ask us to do air testing, because with mold, it's when you're breathing it in. You're breathing it in, it's going in your nose, so it has to become airborne. When it's
Right.
growing, it's producing, and it's becoming airborne. So you're going to find more mold in an area where there's actually growth than in an area where there is no mold growth. So that's
Right.
what we're looking for when we do mold testing, is moisture and the airborne levels.
So you said you were doing, people call you to do air testing, like air quality testing?
Yes.
So how do you do that? Like how do you do air quality
So
testing?
air quality testing on top of mold would be for occupant comfort, because a lot of things in air quality can make someone uncomfortable if they're going to be spending like 8 hours a day, say in an office building. We do a lot of air quality audits in office buildings, because sometimes the maintenance staff can keep the humidity too low. So it's so low, the air is so dry, people start getting itchy. And then they start thinking, well, something in the air, what's making me
Right,
itchy? Is
right.
it bugs? So we have to really focus them back on, okay, really we need to define what it is. It's a humidity problem, not bugs in the air. And we can make recommendations to add more humidity. So air quality is things like temperature, humidity. It can be carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, dust, and it also is VOCs. So VOCs are anything that can off gas, like a new car smell would be VOCs. Paints give off VOCs.
Wow.
Yeah, new carpet is
Carpet,
VOCs.
yeah. Everybody smells that carpet smell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then new car smell is VOCs.
Some people like it, but it's like it could be really harmful to people. Like certain people cannot handle any scents, no perfumes.
Right.
So VOCs in general, we don't. It's just a bunch of chemicals together producing an odor. So we don't know what the quantities are until we do some really specific measurements.
Right.
And yeah, so in general, you just want to have a low VOC total in your home.
Do you test for radon? And what is radon?
Radon, again, is another colorless, odorless gas, and it's actually the number 2 cause of lung cancer in North America. So it's naturally occurring, again, in the soil, and it comes up into basements and into houses through cracks in the foundation and through drains, whatever it can get in. It's just a gas that rises, and what happens is it becomes radioactive when it breaks down. So we would test for radon. This is one of the radon testers that we use. And it's an electret system. So we can measure how much radon gas comes into a house, and we try to do it over 30 to 90 days and sometimes over a year period. So that way we can determine if somebody has too much radon in their house that's accumulating, and we can recommend more ventilation. But it is serious because, again, it's a number 2 cause of lung cancer in North America. So
Okay.
yeah, it's important. Everybody should have their home tested for radon. You can't base your results on what your neighbor had or what's happening in Northern Ontario versus Southern Ontario. We don't have that kind of a database of information, and everybody's house would test differently.
Was there any of these devices that you want to demonstrate? Like, what do they do? Like right now, the air quality in this room right now. Could you test if there's radon or?
Oh, we can't do radon. Radon is like a long-term testing, but we can do general air quality. So basically, one of these machines here would be like a handheld. Let me just see if this one's on. Oh, this one's on. Okay, so this one here actually does 6 different things. So this does the 6 air quality parameters. So it does dust, it does carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, it does VOCs, temperature, and relative humidity. So those are going to tell you your general air quality. And by the end of the day, most buildings are going to have a higher carbon dioxide level. So at the end of the day, when you're actually usually around 2 or 3 o'clock, when you want to have that nap when you're at work, it's usually because the carbon dioxide is so high in the building because everybody's breathing and producing carbon dioxide that it makes you want to fall asleep. So like 2 o'clock nap time is kind of natural if the building's not vented enough. So this machine could kind of catch that and say, okay, listen, you need to add more fresh air to your building, and we would recommend how to do that based on our data collection here. So this would just log, and we'd usually just leave it on site and let it log so we could find out if at 3 o'clock every day, somebody gets exposed to too many VOCs. Because somebody else is, I don't know, it could be that they're painting or next to somebody's office. We don't know. Like until you start testing and getting some data together, you wouldn't be able to assess the air quality. So the data logger is a great tool because it gives us a whole picture of a whole day without us having to sit there, and the machine will do it.
So sometimes you'll come into a place you're investigating, or do you prepare for, you don't even know what you're going in for, so do you wear a mask going in?
Sometimes, because sometimes we'll walk in and I'll walk right back out because people live in these places and they're calling you, but sometimes it's so far gone that you just have no choice but to wear a mask. And because we have a lot more exposure as an inspector, people usually understand that. Yeah, if we're going into houses, we're the ones actually going into every house is potentially moldy. Every house potentially has asbestos that they want to have tested. So we do wear a mask. We have to protect ourselves.
What about formaldehyde contamination? What causes that in homes?
So formaldehyde's another. It's another contaminant. It's like another gas, chemical. And basically, it is everywhere in the environment, but formaldehyde is still in, it's a byproduct of carpets, not necessarily an ingredient in carpets, but it can be a byproduct of new carpet off-gassing. It's also was used in the the late 70s as part of the spray foam. I don't know if you ever heard of UFI.
No.
Urea formaldehyde foam insulation. So that was installed in a bunch
Oh,
of...
those, yeah, when you spray, yes. That's
Yeah,
right.
not the new foam insulation. This is back in the 70s. They used it then, and the actual foam insulation was called urea formaldehyde foam insulation. So, I find formaldehyde in a lot of pressboard furniture. Can be in all kinds of different new furnishings, and it'll just off gas. It's also in your toiletries, like can be in shampoos and in perfumes and all kinds of things like that are in your bathroom, because a lot of ingredients aren't listed on those things, and
Right.
people aren't aware of it necessarily. But it is everywhere in the environment, but it can be in too high of concentration. It can be really toxic to your body.
Okay. Can you explain what these gadgets do?
Sure. Well, I brought a bunch of different things that we can talk about, and basically this is kind of whatever people call us to do, we bring the appropriate equipment out. So we have some mold equipment, some indoor air quality equipment, some radon testing equipment, and just to go through, we can go through each different service if you want. Okay, so this would be like a radon test kit that we put in someone's house, and basically we'd set it up. Inside here are little electrets. They actually have a voltage on them, and the radon gas will hit the electrets, drop the voltage, and we'll be able to measure the voltage before and after, and that's going to give us our radon concentration over a certain period of time. And we can tell the homeowner whether or not they're below what Health Canada is asking for a concentration. This is actually our Quest data logger. So it's basically an indoor air quality data logging machine, and it does 6 different parameters, and we would leave it on site for about 24 hours a location. So if we did an office building or even a home, we do 1 floor per home of the home, and it would log 6 different things: temperature, humidity, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. It does dust, and it also does VOCs, which is the chemical off-gassing. And then we would get a nice chart at the end to see if there was any amplifications or anything out of the ordinary with that. So we don't have to be on site at midnight to figure out if there's an air quality problem. This one here is actually, it's just a handheld version of this, but we're getting instant readings right there and then, and we can go around and measure velocities that are coming out of air ducts. If there's not enough velocity, if there's not enough fresh air, then this machine would tell us that. And then these are some of our mold equipment. This is like one of our moisture meters, and it can measure moisture in wood, plaster, drywall. So this is good if we need to find out if something's actually wet still. Even though there's a water stain, doesn't mean it's necessarily wet, and that would tell us that. This is how we would take an air sample for mold. So basically we have a little cassette that has a sticky slide inside of it, and the spores get stuck to that. And this is what actually goes to the lab, and we would get a lab result from what's on the slide. So this is just a pump here that draws air through it, and it draws air through the slide, and the slide sticks the spores, and the spores get counted at the lab. And that's that. This is an air sampling pump that we've used to sample for airborne mold. And basically this is a little cassette that has a sticky slide inside of it, and mold spores get stuck on the slide. The slide is actually, this whole piece goes to lab. The lab analyst analyzes what's on the slide and gives us a spore count of different types of mold that land on this cassette. So this is just the pump that draws the air through the slide, and the spores get stuck on it, and this is what we call an air sample.
So what are some actions some of our viewers who are watching right now could take to protect themselves from like some of these indoor air toxins?
Well, I think you can just pick better cleaners that are, and even paints and furnishings that are low VOCs, that aren't going to off gas. Also, like one of the basic things we tell people is like, open your windows, because it ended up being that the more ventilation you can add to your house, your building, the better, the more fresh air someone can get, the better it is. So opening a window is something everyone can usually do at some point during the day, just to get more fresh air in. And changing filters regularly on a furnace, that's important. Cleaning your ducts and keeping the moisture under control. Any moisture, any leaks, any water that happens in a house, dry it up right away. Don't let it go. Don't let the leaks become ongoing. If you smell something, deal with it. Find it. Where is it? So that basically it would be more prevention. That way you're not dealing with some huge hidden problem later on.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add before we close today?
I think that's it.
Think you covered all your bases?
Yeah, I think so. We
All
talked
right.
about a lot.
Thanks, Tara, for
Yes.
joining us here
Thank
on the
you.
Clean Air Zone. I've been your host, CK, and this is RPTV.